All right, let's dive into something really interesting today, the power of fasting. We've got this popular podcast episode lined up, and it's packed with info on potential health benefits, more energy, mental clarity, all that good stuff.
You know, what I find fascinating about fasting is it's like having a major moment right now, but it's not some new fad diet. This goes way back, ancient cultures, spiritual traditions, they were onto something.
It's amazing how science is like catching up to what those cultures already knew. So it's
So,
not about starving yourself, right? It's more like giving your body a break from constantly digesting.
exactly. Think of it as hitting pause on digestion.
Yeah.
It's strategic, giving your body a chance to focus on other things.
Okay, so the body can like shift gears, and the podcast we're looking at, it really highlights that shift. When we fast, our bodies start burning stored fat, and they call that ketosis, right? And that can lead to weight loss, even a faster metabolism.
And there's this cellular cleanup process too. It's called autophagy. It's like while you're fasting, your body's doing this deep clean, breaking down old or damaged cells.
So it's like a total cell makeover. That's incredible. The podcast also mentions insulin sensitivity. What's that all about?
Insulin sensitivity. Well, it's about how well your body responds to insulin, the hormone that regulates blood sugar. Fasting can actually make your body more sensitive to insulin, which is huge for preventing type 2 diabetes and keeping your metabolism running smoothly.
So better blood sugar, more energy, lower risk of chronic diseases. Okay, I'm definitely seeing the appeal here. And they talk about brain power too, right? Like fasting can actually boost focus and mental clarity.
It's thought to be because of those ketones we talked about.
Yeah.
They can actually be an alternative fuel source for the brain. Have you ever noticed that? Like sharper focus while fasting?
I think I have. It's like a fog lifts.
Yeah.
But it's not just the physical stuff, right? This podcast talks about mental and emotional benefits too.
Yeah, a lot of people who fast, they talk about that mental discipline, you know, clarity. It can even change your relationship with food. It's about finding that balance.
So this podcast also breaks down different fasting methods. Let's start with the 16.8 method. Everyone seems to be talking about that one.
Yeah, 16.8 is definitely a popular one, especially for beginners. Basically, you fast for 16 hours and then have an 8-hour window to eat. So you could skip breakfast and have your first meal at noon, for example.
That sounds pretty doable. They also talk about the 5.2 method. That one seems more flexible.
Right. With 5.2, you eat normally for 5 days and then pick 2 non-consecutive days to restrict calories. It's good for those who want, a little more flexibility.
And for those who want something more intense, there's the 24-hour fast, right?
Yeah, you go a full 24 hours without eating, usually once or twice a week. It's a bit more challenging, but a lot of people find it really effective, like hitting the reset button.
And then they mention alternate day fasting, which, as the name suggests, means fasting every other day. That sounds intense.
That's definitely more advanced, something you kind of work up to. The key is finding what works for you, your lifestyle, your goals.
Mhm.
There's no one size fits all.
Right, finding what works for you. And this podcast gives some great tips for making fasting easier and more sustainable, like starting slow. What do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. Easing into it,
Yeah.
you know. Maybe start with a 12-hour fast and gradually increase it. It's not a race.
Mm.
It's about finding a pace that feels right.
But they also emphasize hydration. That seems obvious, but still important to remember.
Hydration is essential, yeah. Drink plenty of water, herbal tea, even black coffee if you want something warm.
And they talk about listening to your body.
Yeah, that's so crucial. If you're feeling excessively tired or, you know, lightheaded, shorten the fast. It should be about supporting your health, not stressing it.
Okay, so what about breaking a fast? What's the best way to do that?
Well, I'd say focus on nutrient-dense meals, whole foods, lean protein, healthy fats, and try to avoid those heavy processed foods right away.
That makes sense. It's about nourishing your body. And they really emphasize that fasting is a personal journey, not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Absolutely. It's not about rigid rules. It's about figuring out what works best for you and your goals. Whether that's weight loss, more energy, or a clearer mind, the power is in that adaptability.
Before we wrap up this first part, let's talk about some of those fasting myths that are out there. The podcast does a great job of addressing them, like the idea that fasting slows down your metabolism. What's the truth about that?
Well, it's a bit more nuanced than that. Prolonged calorie restriction can slow metabolism, but short-term fasting, it can actually boost it.
Interesting. And what about the myth that you'll lose muscle if you fast?
Not necessarily.
Mhm.
If you're eating enough protein and doing some strength training, you can absolutely maintain muscle mass.
Okay, good to know. What about feeling weak and tired all the time?
Yeah, you might feel some hunger or fatigue at first, but it usually passes as your body adapts. Many people actually report feeling more energized during their fasts.
Really? So the body finds a new groove?
Exactly. It's amazingly adaptable.
Okay, last myth. Fasting is only for weight loss. What do you think?
Oh, that's way too narrow. It can help with weight management, but the benefits go way beyond that. We're talking cellular health, blood sugar balance, mental clarity, a stronger immune system. It's about overall well-being.
Wow, we've covered a lot already, but there's still more to explore. Stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive into fasting, where we'll take a closer look at the potential benefits and how to make it work for you.
It's really remarkable how this ancient practice of fasting is now being validated by modern science. We're seeing more and more studies that show its potential for improving our health.
It's like we're rediscovering something our ancestors already knew, right? And this podcast episode we're diving into, it makes it clear that fasting isn't about deprivation. It's more about giving your body a chance to heal, to rejuvenate.
Exactly. And one of the most fascinating aspects is its impact on ourselves. We talked about autophagy earlier, but it's worth exploring that a bit further.
Yeah, it's like hitting the reset button for ourselves, right?
It is, in a way. During autophagy, our bodies break down and recycle old or damaged cell parts. It's like a deep clean at the microscopic level. And this process has been linked to a lower risk of chronic diseases, heart disease, even certain types of cancer.
So it's not just about feeling good in the moment. It could be about protecting ourselves from serious health problems down the road.
Precisely. And that brings us to another benefit, insulin sensitivity. When our bodies are more sensitive to insulin, we can regulate our blood sugar better. And that's, as we said, super important for preventing type 2 diabetes and maintaining metabolic health.
This podcast really highlights how powerful fasting can be for blood sugar and metabolism, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And it's not just about preventing disease. Stable blood sugar means fewer energy crashes throughout the day. You just feel more balanced, more energized.
Makes sense. And we can't forget about brain function. This podcast talks about how fasting can boost mental clarity and focus.
Right, those ketones. They don't just fuel our bodies, they can fuel our brains too.
Yeah.
Some people even say they feel more creative and productive while fasting.
It's like fasting gives our brains a boost, that extra edge. But, beyond the purely cognitive benefits, I'm also really interested in the mental and emotional aspects that the podcast brings up.
That's a great point. A lot of people who fast find that it, builds mental discipline, self-control. It can be a tool for a healthier relationship with food, becoming more aware of what our bodies really need.
Almost as like a form of mindfulness.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. Fasting encourages us to tune into our hunger cues, to understand the difference between real hunger and emotional eating. It helps us make more conscious choices about what we eat.
I think that's so valuable, especially today when we're like constantly bombarded with food. It's like fasting helps us regain control over our eating habits.
Exactly. And again, it's not about deprivation. It's about a rhythm that supports our well-being. And remember, there are different approaches to fasting. It's about finding what works for you, your goals.
The podcast does a great job of explaining those different approaches, like the 16.8 method, the 5.2, even more intense ones like the 24-hour fast.
And they give practical advice on how to get started safely and effectively.
Maybe we should recap those tips. They talk about starting slowly, staying hydrated, listening to your body, planning your meals, and remembering that it's a personal journey.
All key takeaways. Starting slowly lets your body adjust. Staying hydrated it's essential for energy and overall health. Listening to your body ensures you're not pushing too hard. And planning your meals helps you break the fast in a way that nourishes your body.
That last point is really important, right? It's a personal journey, not one size fits all.
Absolutely. It's about finding a rhythm that aligns with your lifestyle, your preferences, and your goals. Empowering yourself to make choices that support your well-being in a way that feels, sustainable.
Before I move on, I think we should revisit those myths we talked about earlier, just to make sure everyone's clear on what fasting is and isn't.
Definitely. We debunk the myths that fasting slows metabolism, leads to muscle loss, makes you weak and tired, and is only for weight loss.
Those are all important points. We learned that short-term fasting can actually boost metabolism, and if you're getting enough protein and doing strength training, you can keep your muscle mass.
And some initial hunger or fatigue is normal, but many people find their energy actually goes up as their body adapts.
And of course, the benefits go way beyond just weight loss, impacting everything from cellular health and blood sugar to mental clarity and immune function.
Fasting is a holistic approach to well-being. It's about feeling good inside and out.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive. We've talked about the history, the science, the different methods, the benefits, the risks, even debunked some common myths.
What's so intriguing is how fasting, something that's been around for centuries, is still so relevant today. It reminds us that sometimes the simplest things can have the biggest impact on our health.
It makes you wonder what other ancient wisdom we might rediscover and apply to our lives today. It's something to think about as we keep learning about health and wellness.
I love that. Always evolving, always discovering. That's what makes it so exciting. But for now, let's move on to the final part of our deep dive, where we'll explore some more considerations for incorporating fasting into your life safely and effectively.
Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into fasting. We've covered a lot of ground, but before we wrap up completely, it's important to talk about some things to keep in mind if you're thinking about making fasting part of your life, for safety and all that.
You're right. Fasting can have a lot of benefits, but it's good to be informed. Some people experience side effects, especially at the beginning.
Like the podcast mentions hunger pangs. That seems pretty common,
Oh,
right?
yeah, totally normal. Your
Yeah.
body is adjusting to going without food for a while, but those pangs, they usually fade as your body starts using stored fat for energy.
They also mention headaches, maybe feeling tired while you're adjusting.
That can happen too, but it's usually temporary. Staying hydrated, making sure you're getting enough electrolytes, that can really help.
Makes sense. And of course, fasting isn't for everyone, right?
Right. If you have certain medical conditions like diabetes or eating disorders, or if you're pregnant or breastfeeding, it's really important to talk to your doctor before trying any kind of fasting.
Yeah, the podcast definitely advises against like extended fasting without medical supervision.
Absolutely. Prolonged fasting, if it's not done right, it can lead to, nutrient deficiencies, other complications.
Yeah.
Better safe than sorry.
So as we wrap up this whole deep dive, what are some key takeaways for our listeners who might be thinking about giving fasting a try?
Well, first things first, talk to your doctor, make sure it's, safe and appropriate for you. And if you get the go-ahead, start slow, gradually increase that fasting window as your body gets used to it, and really, really listen to your body. Any concerning symptoms, adjust your approach.
It sounds like hydration is a big theme.
Huge.
Mhm.
Staying hydrated is so important throughout the whole process. Water's always good, of course, but herbal tea, black coffee, those are good too.
And when it's time to break the fast, what's the best way to do that?
Go for those nutrient-rich foods,
Mhm.
whole foods, lean protein, healthy fats that'll replenish your body, give you lasting energy, and try to avoid those heavy processed foods right after a fast. They'd be tough to digest.
Good advice. So it sounds like it's really about approaching fasting with like a sense of mindfulness and self-awareness.
Exactly. It's not about restricting yourself or deprivation. It's about finding a rhythm that works for you, your lifestyle, and supports your long-term health.
This whole deep dive into fasting has been it's been really eye-opening. We've explored the history, the science, the different methods, the potential benefits, risks, even debunked some myths. What a journey.
It's amazing how fasting, something so ancient, is still so relevant today.
Yeah.
It shows us that sometimes those simple approaches can have a really powerful effect on our health.
It really does. And it makes you wonder, what other ancient wisdom is out there that we could bring into our lives today. Something to think about as we keep learning and exploring the world of health and wellness.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone.
It's been a pleasure. We hope you've learned some things and feel empowered to make those choices about your own health journey.
Absolutely. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep exploring.